Hello and welcome to the first of a series that we've created here on YouTube with inspirational speakers. And we're setting the bar high and coming in high with the amazing Luke Tyburski, who's an ultra endurance athlete. He's conquered some amazing achievements so far in his life, and he's also very frank, honest about his dealings with depression. I think you're going to get so much out of this interview. He's also a really cool guy. So I certainly know that by the end of the interview, you're going to be wanting to get out there and run. What do you think, Lex?
Absolutely. Luke's an amazing guy. He's really been really lovely to chat to. So fun. He's also got a book called Chasing Extreme out on Amazon. You can also catch his film The Ultimate Triathlon on Amazon Prime. And he's got lots coming up in the pipeline, so check him out. All the links to his social media and book, etc., will be in our description. And hope you enjoy the interview, and if you do, please like, subscribe and share. Thanks ever so much. So what, with everything happening with lockdown, how did you cope with that? Like, what were you still doing especially when we couldn't go out of the house? You know, we could go out once a day and things like that. What did you do? How did you keep fit? How did you fill your days?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one I think everyone has been asking each other over time. For me, lockdown presented an opportunity, and that's how I viewed it. Because I knew that a lot of people would be frustrated and would sort of almost, recoil in their own lives. And I saw it as an opportunity to connect with myself. First and foremost, I was forced to slow down to a degree because we couldn't go and do all these things. So it was actually, it was a really good opportunity to reconnect to myself and do a few things that I maybe have neglected or haven't done or wanted to do, because I gained time, and that's how I looked at it.
Yeah, so precious.
I work from home pretty much most of the time. I'd say 80% of the time, doing a lot of online coaching and online talks, creating presentations, and do everything that's part of my speaking and coaching business. So I spend a lot of time at home anyway. I have an office where I work from. So that didn't bother me too much. But it was a case of, I looked at it as this massive opportunity, because when I did have clients I had to go to, or when I had meetings that I normally would have to travel to, or even when I was doing talks to corporations, say in London or in other cities around the UK, I would have to travel. So now I didn't have to travel. I was doing it from my office. So the first thing was, I looked at it as an opportunity that I actually had more time in my life, which, when you think of it, time is limited, is amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing, yeah.
To pass my time, I had a couple of projects that during the first part of lockdown, when it was actually, you could only really go outside to get food and exercise once a day, I had a couple of projects for private organizations to create some mindset courses for their employees. So I had quite a lot of work on that I was busy doing, and I was being really productive because I looked at it as, I have all this extra time. So in the morning, I would go for my morning walk. I would do some meditation. I would have a really good breakfast and chat with my wife, and then I would get to work. So I had some of my own personal time, but then at the same time, I still had enough work to sort of occupy my days till when I wanted to stop.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we understand that because a lot of what we do is from home too. But I think it's great that exactly how we saw it, wasn't it? As an opportunity. I mean, we we usually go to the climbing centre and things like that, but we couldn't do any of that, so we decided to get things set up in the garden and just train really as much as we can, and ended up being fitter coming out of lockdown than when we went in. Much fitter. But I think you're absolutely right. The time aspect, I mean, even if you were used to going out to work every day as a 9 to 5 job, the fact that you could be at home and be with your family. It was amazing, absolutely amazing, and probably never see that again. Well, hopefully not in this way anyway, but you know, never see that again. So what a
I felt it. I found it.
time.
I don't know how you felt it, but I felt as sort of real life has crept in slowly. Now I'm finding we're doing more things again. I kind of already do miss that simplicity that I had in that lockdown time. Of it was a lot more. I need to eat. I need to look after my mind. What do I want to do today? And there was no other real distractions. I found I'm already missing that a bit. I'm thinking, how can I bring some more of that lockdown spirit back into my life? Now I'm like, I'm on the computer, you know, a lot.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. One of the things that I talk about with my clients, whether it's corporate clients or athletes who I work with a lot as well, I talk about this concept of there are no big moments, right? So whether, say people in the corporate world who have to do a presentation in front of their team. So whether it's a presentation in front of 5 people or a presentation in front of maybe the whole organization, and it's say 500 people. What that individual actually has to do on stage is no different. The only thing that's different is the people out in front of them. But what they actually have to do, what they can control, there is no difference. So whether they're talking to 5 people or 500, it's not a big moment that there's 500 people in the audience. You create that yourself, right? So you choose how you view that scenario. So Johnny, like, what you just said is, no doubt there's a lot of people who feel that way, but what's stopping you from doing the living the life, having the lifestyle that you were living in lockdown and saying, I want that lockdown spirit back? Well, it's always there. It's just you choose whether you actually focus your attention and prioritize those things in your daily life when there are more options, right? So it's where your attention is and what you prioritize on those daily basis of what you do that dictates how you spend your limited time.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah. I guess it was it was like because the system kind of broke down, that constant kind of rhetoric of we've got to move on, we've got to get further on in life, and that sense of progression was kind of taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose with that taken away from the system we're in, it was kind of a bit of a relief, I suppose.
Yeah, and you were free to do what you wanted to do.
Yeah, but I get what you say. We are free, but it still creeps in. Well, it does with me anyway. I'm kind of like...
Well, it's the element of choice, right? We have more choice now. Whereas before we had very limited choice of what we could do outside of the bare essentials.
Yeah.
So now we have that lure of choice, and it's a case of, but yeah, I want to go over in here and do this, but this was really cool over here. So now it's hard because we've got more decisions to make of where we want to put our attention and prioritize our time. And we're all human, right? Like we all want to live in this perfect world that we could say this has been the most perfect day. But sometimes when we are lured with different choices, we may not choose the one that we want in the long term, and we sometimes go with the one that's sort of like the bigger bang for your buck here and now in the short term.
Good observation of it's like you said, it's being human, because it's not always the thing. Even though something makes you really, really happy, you can end up going over to do something else. Even though, like in lockdown, we could live like that pretty much for as long as we wanted, but it's the dangling carrot of humanity.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah. And talking of sort of choices and sort of one would say maybe a crazy choice, but when you as if anyone couldn't notice from your accent, you're Australian, right? When you were in Australia, you were doing football for a living and gave that up because of injury. And then I was reading that you went and just did the toughest foot race on earth, the Marathon des Sables. And for those that don't know, I mean, we've seen a few documentaries about this, one of which was Fiona Oakes, who also ran it.
It's no park run.
It's certainly no park run. It's through the desert, and it is tough. And to go from being, I mean, you would have been in some level of fitness to be able to play football, of course, but to go from that to running this huge race in these crazy situation.
I've got like a little quote. Can I interject?
Yeah, go
where
for
also
it.
It says, I've got this bit from your website where you had never run more than 10 kilometres before, and you thought it was a good idea to sign up to what's deemed by the Discovery Channel as the toughest foot race on earth.
Yeah. How? Why?
We were talking about this last night because we were like, we run. But to have not even tackled, like Lex says, you have to be a pro footballer, right? So you've got a good level of fitness going on. But to not have tackled, as you know, we're not just talking about physical ability here. The mental strength to do something like that foot race is intense.
Yeah, it's the long version to answer your question is in my book, Chasing Extreme, but I'll try and keep the shorter version because there's a lot of different elements to it for you now. I bounced around the world playing professional football in the lower leagues. So I left Australia still playing football, went to America, Belgium, and then I came here to the UK where I am now and battled with many injuries when I retired at 9 years ago now. And part of me when I retired was I felt like I had this loss of identity. And I'd identified myself as a footballer from the age of 6 or 7. That's all I ever wanted to do as a kid.
Wow.
Was play professional football around the world and just, score goals for fun. And that was it. That's all I ever wanted to do. And so I did that. But then when I retired through injuries, I was a bit like, now what? I had no idea. I was also battling with my mental health. I was battling with depression when I wasn't speaking about it with anyone. I didn't really understand it. On the outside, my life looked awesome, but on the inside, I was really struggling. So with my mental health battles and then the loss of identity, I was a bit like, I have no idea what it is I'm going to do. And I don't like how I'm feeling right now. If I don't fill the void that was football, this could get pretty dark and nasty. So I remembered a conversation I had with a friend in Australia who just started running marathons. Now, I thought people that did half marathons were crazy. People that did marathons were absolutely mad. And I'd only just got introduced to these things called ultra marathons, where I just thought these people were on a death wish. So he was telling me about this race through the Sahara Desert, and I literally said to him, "That's impossible. No one could do that." And this is, my naivete about running. And I Googled it, and I found the world's toughest race running through Sahara Desert. 6 marathons in 7 days, carrying everything in your backpack, and I was just like, right. I'm going to sign up for this. It's in 6 months. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. And I thought, I'm going to throw my life into this because then I have an identity. I'm going to be this ultra runner. And actually, I'm going to be this adventurer. And actually, I'm going to create a new life of an endurance adventurer where I do all these big challenges all around the world, write magazine articles, have books published, speak on stage, have sponsors, all the rest of it. I had this massive big plan, but deep down, it was the fact that I needed to fill this void that football is now gone. And also I was running away from the fact that I wasn't in a very stable place mentally. And I didn't really understand how I was going to get to that stable place because I was ashamed and I didn't want to admit that I was struggling mentally. So I threw myself into endurance sports and went out to the desert, which was quite literally my first real running race of any distance.
Yeah, and how was it?
So I trained I trained very hard for it. I went into the desert with a couple of injuries, which flared up throughout the day. There is a self-made documentary on YouTube called "It's Not a Race, It's a War."
Okay.
Don't eat any food when you're watching it because there's some gory photos
Right.
of my and footage of my toes.
Ooh.
So it's
That's
pretty
not good.
graphic. I will warn you that.
Okay.
But yeah, I suffered a lot. I feel like I got a lot for my money when I went out to the desert because I got degloved several of my toes, so the skin literally just sort of popped off.
Oh
Wow,
my
how about that?
goodness.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. So I didn't realize my feet would sweat so much being out in the desert. So what happened was my feet would sweat, my toes would get really wet. And then, as you know, when your skin soaks for a long period of time, it just turns to like wet paper, and it just slides off. So my toes were a massive mess. On day 3, I got a stomach virus because you're living in unsanitary conditions. You're going to the bathroom in a bucket 50 meters away from your tent with 1,000 other people, 800 other people when I did it. And I got a stomach virus, so I was throwing up and had diarrhea for the night on the 3rd night and the morning of the 4th morning. And then the 4th day we had a double marathon to run. Well, after 20 kilometers, I was severely dehydrated, walking like I had no idea where I was going. Came into a checkpoint, and the doctor basically said, you have to have an intravenous drip. If you don't, we're going to pull you out of the race because you're too severely dehydrated. So for 3 hours, I think it was, I had about 3 liters or 2 or 3 liters of intravenous electrolytes and fluids pumped into me. And then they said, okay, now get up and run 65 kilometers until the end of the day, and you've got a marathon to run tomorrow.
Wow.
So so that was a bit of experience. And then I did the marathon, finished the final day of 10 miles over the biggest sand dunes in the Southern Sahara, and I finished the race. And it was bittersweet. And I say that because I had really high expectations of myself that I was going to finish right at the top end of the race. But I had different injuries. I got a time penalty for having an intravenous drip. That's part of the rules. You get you get given 3 hours as a time penalty. So I was disappointed with where I finished, but that's very superficial. But deep down and over time now, I've realized I've learned so much about endurance sports from a 7-day race. I probably learned maybe 3 or 4 years worth of experience in 7 days from endurance sports. And I've carried that over in my coaching and in my own personal endurance sports career now.
I don't think I'm going to be signing up for that anytime soon. That sounds...
Yeah, we've watched, like I said, a couple
grim.
of documentaries about the Sables. And
Yeah.
There's one we watched, I don't know if you've seen it, where a guy gets lost and he ends up, he goes finds a hut and he ends up eating the heads off bats, doesn't he, to survive?
Yeah, he has to bite the heads off bats and suck out their insides just to survive because he gets completely lost, and he's lost for days.
Yeah. They've given up hope for him.
It was only
his,
I think, just his wife that was continuing like, no, I don't believe he's dead, he can get through it. And eventually he stumbled upon someone who took him to a village who eventually found out, I think he was an Italian guy. Unbelievable. But yeah, he was so close.
He carried on. He did he went back year after year.
He went back.
We were like,
Wow.
I think I
As
would
you
learn
do.
enough in
Why
those
not?
7 days, right?
Yeah.
I think once for me that would be my life experience fulfilled.
Yeah.
Do you find that, like, what you went through in those 7 days, has that really progressed into your sort of everyday life, for your sort of your mental health, getting through life experiences?
Yes and no. Like, I've always been very intrigued and curious about mental strength training, as you mentioned before. Like, how did I get through it mentally? So I got introduced to meditation unknowingly as a 14-year-old footballer. So I was playing at elite academies in Australia, basically at the top level of youth football. And I remember as a 14-year-old kid at this camp, laying down on this floor, and we had this performance coach, I think she was called, and she told us all to lay down on our backs and just focus on your breathing, and breathe in, breathe out. And as you breathe out, imagine you're breathing out all your tiredness and all of this, like very much like now we would say, yeah, like that's just normal meditation.
Yeah.
But this is like 1996, 1997, and I'm 14. And all my teammates, they were like carrying on, and some of them were hitting me and having jokes.
Yeah.
But as a 14-year-old kid, I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is so cool. I can definitely see the benefits. So I've continued that throughout my life, meditation. I've had a few times where I've stopped doing it just for whatever reasons, but it's always been a constant in my life. I'm very regular with these days. But also I got into different mental strength training exercises, like basic stuff like visualization and self-talk and things like this. So I've continued that throughout my footballing career, because I was quite lucky in Australia that I was at the highest level, and I was exposed to sports psychologists and people like this. So it's always been part of my arsenal, and I used a lot of those tools in the desert. And then I almost feel like I sharpened them and created a few new ones while I was out in the desert, because preparing for a game that lasts 90 minutes with teammates, to then running for hours and hours on end by yourself, it's a very different mental conversation you have, and it's a very different mental struggle. So during the desert, I sharpened the tools that I already had, plus I created new ones. And from that, I was definitely able to pull them over into everyday life that have helped me, overcome, some of my mental health battles, business problems, and also just struggling to find a solution. So it's definitely helped me in everyday life. But it's also a case of, to be stronger in these exercises, to be stronger mentally, it's like your brain's like a muscle. You have to continually strengthen it.
Oh, definitely.
And with people who I talk to, they want to be mentally strong. They want to be able to overcome obstacles, adapt to setbacks, and see opportunities in their everyday life, but they don't practice mental strength, and I say mental strength training exercises as an umbrella term, on a daily basis. So they want the results, but they're not willing to do the work.
Well, it's no different than training, like you say, any in muscle, training. You want big arms, you use weights, you do these things, but you put the effort in. If you want, like you say, strong mental clarity and these tools to help you through life, you have to then train the muscle. And there's no quick fix, no quick way around that. And you do come across in your film, your film is The Ultimate Triathlon, isn't it, on Amazon Prime? Yep. That's the film that we first saw you in, and that's how we discovered you, when we thought it was fantastic. And you do come across ever so positive and upbeat and good sense of humour. And for those who haven't seen Luke, he wears his little hat with his propeller on when he's running and makes people smile along the way, which is lovely. Certainly made my son, we've got a 6-year-old, and he was like,
he wants
the hat. I thought you were awesome. Are you speaking to the man with the hat? Yeah, that's the one. You're so positive and so full of energy. And I think that's really wonderful, considering the fact that you are very candid with your mental health issues or whatever. You obviously do suffer in some way, but to keep that positivity going on the things that you put out, but also not shy away from the fact that you do struggle or you have struggled.
Because that would be easy to do. Right? I think a lot of people do. Just
put on a mask.
I did it for years, so I've been there,
Yeah, but I think that's really lovely to come across, so wonderfully positive, and to turn it around so well. I mean, I know we're only seeing a little snippet of it, and it must have taken years, but it's still, what you're doing now is great, and how it comes across is fantastic. And so we were sort of wondering, where we see you running, we see you doing these fantastic events and what have you. But when you're just chilling and it's just Luke's having Luke time and you're just hanging with your wife, what do you do? What makes you happy? Just to be
relaxes the mind.
What chills you out?
Yeah, that's a great question. My wife and I have a lot of conversations. We don't have a television. So yeah, there is no sitting in front of the television and just sitting next to one another and watching TV.
Yeah.
We have a lot of conversations about life, about our future, and we're very invested in one another. So we're lucky to have a very strong relationship. So, you know, and it sounds weird to say this, but, you know, one of the things I do for fun is actually sit and have a conversation with my wife.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So that is it. But for me also is meditation. I read books. I like to read books where I learn things. So I don't really read books that have about stories, because I got a great imagination. I can make up loads of stories in my head. So I like to read books that I can learn something from. You know, I've got a bit of a textbook on the Inca Empire in South America. So I flick through that and read bits and pieces. I read psychology books. I read leadership books. You know, I read autobiographies. So there's a huge range of different types of books that I read. So yeah, so I'll meditate. I'll just relax. Occasionally we watch the odd movie, but I wouldn't say it's a regular fare. But for me is, yeah, I just like to, you know, communicate and talk and have conversations, not just about, oh, how was your day and how it's this, but actually dive into some topics. So my wife's an osteopath. So she's very medically minded. So, you know, our conversations over dinner or after dinner when we're just sitting on the couch can, you know, be about certain conditions. And I have an exercise science background, and I know, you know, the tiniest amount about the body, and her knowledge is a lot more extensive. So I'll always ask questions. I'm intrigued because she can teach me a lot about the body. And also one of the other things is I do a lot is I look at it as part of my mental strength training is I guess you would call it daydream a lot. So I will visualize what I want my future to look like, or wouldn't it be cool if I did that, or what about this adventure, or what about that challenge, or what about trying to do that in my business, or create that content. So I do spend, and this is something that I've done ever since I was a kid, was, you know, you would call it daydream, but it's almost like daydreaming with a purpose, because I might daydream of 10 different things, and over the next 12 to 24 months, I will probably do 3 or 4 of them. So I spend a lot of time doing that, and that comes, I feel like it's a way of doing some mental strength training, because I start the process of achieving a goal by visualizing it and asking myself, what if I can do it?
Yeah. Well, the power of visualization, I don't think many people realise just how powerful it is, because your body, a bit like when you're dreaming, your body goes through all the emotions and all the different things that it goes through when you actually have that experience. Like if you dream about running a race and finishing it, you get all the endorphins and all the things that you would get for doing the race in your mind, you know, and in your subconscious, and it's incredibly powerful. So I think doing that is a fantastic idea, you know.
And like your daydreams there, some people might just think of daydreaming as, oh, I'm daydreaming, I'm not thinking about what I should be doing. Whereas you're almost like having sort of meditative, positive affirmations.
Uh-huh.
So it's a really different one, because a lot of people think about daydreaming like, oh, I was daydreaming, I wasn't doing what I should be. So it's a really nice way of looking at it. And also, like, you know, like you said, you're going through visualizations, affirmations, and then you go on to actually bring those things into your life.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And, you know, to touch on the point about visualization, there is a lot of science out there now about creating neural pathways. And it's been proven numerous times that if you visualize doing something, let's say I visualize walking up to the coffee shop to buy a coffee, drinking the coffee and walking home. Let's say I visualize that, you know, twice a day for a week, and I don't actually go up to the coffee shop. I just visualize sitting on my couch doing it. And what you do when you start to visualize this and with detail is you lay down these neural pathways. They're almost like pre-recorded memories. So then let's say on the 10th day or after a week of visualizing this, you actually go and walk to the coffee shop, buy a coffee and walk home. Your brain doesn't actually it can't differentiate between the fact that have you actually done this before or actually have you just thought of it before. Your brain actually thinks, oh, I've done this before. I know I've done this before. I'm 100% certain I've done this before. So when you're trying to do something difficult, if you practice visualization and going through the steps of the process that's going to give you a chance to be successful, i.e. for me, it's walking to the coffee shop, ordering my coffee, drinking my coffee and coming home, just as a daily example, my brain can't tell the difference between actually when I go and do it literally or when I'm visualizing it figuratively.
Yeah.
And some of the science that's been coming out lately in the last sort of 5 or so years, give or take a few, is visualizing not just seeing yourself doing it, but using all 5 senses. So what I mean by that is, okay, when I walk up to the coffee shop, what can I hear? Okay, there's buses that go past my street. I can hear cars. I could probably hear birds. I could probably hear people talking. So visualize that, and listen to that when you're doing this process. What can you smell? What can you taste in your mouth? Go through what can I feel? What does it feel like when I'm walking? What clothes am I wearing? Am I carrying a bag? Do I have a hat on or sunglasses or whatever? So going through all 5 senses, it actually embeds these neural pathways deeper and in a more solid way. So then when you try and go and do it literally, you feel like, oh, I've done this every day of my life, but you've actually never done it before.
Yeah.
So that is how powerful visualization is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that I do now is, especially preparing for a race or preparing for, say, if I've got a talk on stage, I will do that. So then when I'm on stage talking in front of thousands of people, I don't have this, oh my goodness moment. It's my brain says, you've done this 100 times. This is as easy as putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
It's so simple because I've done the work prior. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly something that we've sorry, I'm just trying to stop the cat walking over the recorder there. We've been doing in our daily lives a lot more is the visualization and the positive affirmations, and it's really has changed our lives around, hasn't it? And sorry, excuse me.
Our cat has 3 legs. He's a bit of a handful. Yeah. He doesn't really know he has, so he's just he guns about. Yeah,
and sort of lollops around. So I totally understand how positive and how important it is. But I love the fact that there's science behind it, because you often find with these things, people are like, oh yeah, that's mumbo jumbo, pseudoscience rubbish. And when you've got the science behind it, I was aware of what you were saying about the pathways and things like that. I think it's fantastic because you can reach the people who are only interested in the science, and not just the people who would deem themselves, open-minded and open to all these different things. I guess it's quite
neglected still. Like, I guess for the everyman that thinks I'm going to go and do, parkrun or something, I'm going to do couch to 5K. You'll go through the process on your app and then you'll go and do the run. But I guess the mental health and mental strength is still like left behind a bit, I think, with the everyman anyway. And like you're saying, just visualizing you doing that race, getting up and enjoying and smiling and enjoying the experience and that stuff's really important. I think it's a really good message to get across to people.
Yeah, so basically that's what I do for a living is I teach others what life has taught me, but I focus on the mindset, the way we view, think and act on a daily basis. And I talk to a lot of people and they say, especially athletes, they want to say, I want to be mentally stronger. I want to be able to run faster for longer. I want to be able to push through discomfort. I want to be able to not slow down. I want to not have these thoughts of, I want to give up and walk or whatever. And I'm saying, oh, that's great. That's what you want. Are you willing to do the work? Yes. Okay. Well, do you train your brain daily? No, I don't know how. So that's what I do. I provide tools and processes and frameworks and principles for people to train their mind to optimize their performance. Now, whether they're an athlete who does park run or does half marathons, or just likes to cycle their bike or whatever, or right up to professional athletes, elite Ironman triathletes, and ultra runners who run up and down mountains for fun. If they're not training on a regular basis their mind, then they can't expect to be mentally strong when things get really tough. But it's just the same in everyday life. You have discussions with family members, with people who you work with. You have certain situations, scenarios, or outcomes on a daily basis. Someone cuts you off while you're driving. How will you react, or will you even react? So whether someone cuts you off driving, you choose. So that's a stimulus. You choose your attitude to that stimulus. And whether you are in a running race and maybe you're doing a marathon and you drop your nutrition, right? That's a stimulus. You choose your attitude from what happened to you. So you could say, my race is over. I don't have my normal nutrition. I'm going to have to slow down. I can't do a personal best because I need that personal nutrition. So that's a negative way to look at it. Same if someone cuts you off. Oh, now I'm going to be late. Oh, I can't believe they did that. We nearly had an accident. Oh, I'm beeping the horn, yelling at them. That's a negative reaction, right? So it's exactly the same principles as a stimulus. You choose your attitude and then you take action. But I've applied it to someone running a marathon. I've applied it to someone being cut off driving on the road. So these are all the things that I practice regularly. So if someone does cut me off when I'm driving, or if I do lose my nutrition in the middle of a race, I stay positive. I look at how I can then help me get to what I want to do. So if I'm trying to get through an intersection or find a parking spot, I was like, okay, I got cut off. No one's hurt, move on. Like, it sounds really simple, but how many of us waste energy and time and get frustrated at something so trivial that someone cut you off? As long as everyone's safe, move on.
Exactly.
Get over it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it transfers to everyday life, plus in the sport realm where I've come from.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I mean, I think in a way, going back to your the film, the Ultimate Triathlon, not to sort of give everything away, but you your body fails you before your mind.
Yeah, I was thinking the
and
same thing.
you're so determined to keep going, even when your wife and your team are like, no, you must stop, you're gonna die, come on.
There wasn't much left in the tank.
No, that you're literally sort of being taken unconscious into the hotel.
Literally,
and we were just like, whoa, this guy, wow, we didn't know anything about you at the time.
But to see that's possible,
and
to see what you can do.
Just to see what's possible. I mean, with that film, how I mean, you say you don't have a television, and obviously you watch films now and again or whatever, but how did the film come about? How did you go from obviously planning this race and deciding you were going to do it, and obviously you have to find sponsors and what have you. How did the actual film come about to get it onto Amazon and get it out to a wide audience?
It's been an interesting journey, and it started before I went to the desert. Actually, it ties in nicely to my first ever race, the Marathon des Sables in the Sahara Desert, because, as I said, I was escaping from my mental health battles. I had this loss of identity, and I said, right, I'm going to be this endurance adventurer. I just made up this title, right? And as I said, I want to travel the world doing big challenges. I want to have books published. I want to speak on stages about my challenges. I want to have sponsors. I want to have documentaries made about my challenges, all these things. This was literally my new plan for life. So after I signed up to the Marathon des Sables in 2011, a couple of months after it, I sat at my computer, stared at a world map, and just went, right, if people are going to take me serious, and if I'm going to actually make a living and create a brand, for lack of a better term, around doing all these things that I want to do, you know, I'm talking living a massive pipe dream, you know, then I need to do something big. I need to do something that'll put me on the map.
Yeah.
So I stared at a world map and said, come on, show me something. And this, and I say this tongue in cheek, this little gap of water between Africa and Spain sort of caught my eye. And I thought, I wonder if I could swim that. Now, I have no swimming background. I learned to swim from a very young age, but I never competed. I never did any sort of swim training. So I thought, yeah, maybe I could swim that. And I thought, well, maybe I could cycle the entire southeast coast of Spain. That would be really cool. Along the Mediterranean, great views. Same thing. I have no cycling background. I used to have an old mountain bike that I used to cycle to friends' houses, but I've never done any sort of road cycling at all. I didn't even own a bike at the time. And then I thought, well, swim, bike, run. Why don't I continue the run along the coast, along France, until I get to the next country? And the next country was Monaco. So I thought, Morocco to Monaco, swim the Gibraltar Strait, cycle the entire southeast coast of Spain, and run from the Spanish-French border to Monaco. I thought, that's a great idea. I started this, my great ideas, right? They come up out of nowhere. And then I simply researched how far it is. Has anyone done it before? Has anyone done sections of it? And basically, there was nothing there. I created it from scratch. I did all the maths to think how far I could cycle each day. Now, remember, I didn't even own a bike. I didn't know what cycling 300 kilometers meant in a day. I had friends who I asked, and the plan was to run a double marathon every day. I'd only just started my running training, but I was like, yeah, that should fine. And the swim's about 20 odd kilometers. Yeah, I'll be fine with that. Now, the thing that I did was, I didn't say I'm going to do this next year or the year after. I gave myself four and a bit years to prepare for it. So in those next 4.5 years, I did loads of different challenges all around the world. But part of the Ultimate Triathlon, I thought, because it's never been done before and it's something very unique, I thought I should make a documentary. I was like, well, how do you have a documentary made? And it was like, well, you hire a filmmaker and all the rest of it. And I was just like, well, that's going to cost a lot of money. So
Yeah.
I was trying to get budget, and I was trying to get sponsors. And I did this on a very, very shoestring budget.
Yeah.
But I actually got in contact by a filmmaker who said, I've heard about the Ultimate Triathlon. I've seen some of your videos that I filmed myself. Have you got a filmmaker for the project? And I was like, played it really cool. Yeah, I'm talking to a few people, but I haven't quite settled it. He was like, oh, would you be interested in having a chat with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. He came over to where I live and we had a chat, and we had a day of filming, and he showed me what he could do. And I was like, you're hired.
Yeah.
And he actually said, he's like, look, I know it's a big project, and he was just starting. He only had a couple of years experience, but he was very good at what he did. And he said, I would be happy to do it for free as long as I can own the film and have some, some rights to it and all the rest of it. Try and make money off the back of it. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, sure, cool, whatever.
Perfect.
And then here's another twist in the story of the Ultimate Triathlon. It must have been 3 or 4 weeks before I was planned to head out to do the challenge. Now, I had a few sponsors who got on board largely because I was going to have this documentary made. So they were like, yeah, cool. We'll give you some cash. We'll give you some product. We'll do this because you've got this documentary. Just make sure you get plenty of footage of our products or our, whatever. So I was like, yeah, easy. My filmmaker called me and said, Luke, I've got bad news. I've got a paid gig that's paying very well, and I can't come out and film the Ultimate Triathlon. And this is like 3 or 4 weeks before I'd started. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a massive problem. 24 hours later, I get a direct message on social media from someone who I've never met before. Said he'd listened to one of my interviews on a podcast I did. I know you've got a filmmaker, but do you need someone to do some promotional videos for the Ultimate Triathlon? I've been doing this part-time. I'm looking to get into it full-time. I'd love to help you out. So I'm thinking, like, this is awesome. So I've found the solution. So Jay from Physique Media, we had a chat and I said, actually, my filmmaker fell through. Do you want to come and film it? And he said, without even thinking, yes, I'm in 100%. And I was like, well, I said to him, you need to think about this. I can't pay you. This is the deal that the other filmmaker had. I can offer it to you. And he was like, yes, fine, I'm coming. So I said, look, are you married? He said, yes. Do you have kids? He said, yes. I'm like, you need to go and talk to your wife about this, because you're going to be away for about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. It's over 12 days, but we had to be there a bit before and after. So he came back and said, yes, I'm in. He came out, he filmed it, he edited it all himself. He did an amazing job. I got some friends who did the voiceovers, and got a lot of people that helped out on the back end of it. And basically, we had a film tour around the world. We had 13 different locations in 6 or 7 different countries. And a lot of it was, our expenses got paid for. Some of them I only went to. So it was really cool, got some great exposure. And then he just said, I'm going to submit it to Amazon, and basically anyone can submit a film to Amazon as long as your film is within certain parameters of what they ask. And if it is, you submit it, and if they like it, then they'll put it on there.
Yeah.
And it sounds really simple, but you've got to have a high quality film.
It's not simple.
And they said yes, and I like don't get me wrong, you don't make any money from having a film on Amazon unless millions of people are watching it every day. We have maybe hundreds, maybe into the thousands now watching it every day, and no one's making any money whatsoever off it. But it was really cool because I had this envision, I had this plan in 2011 that I was going to do all these big challenges around the world, and I was going to have all these things that I talked about. And now I had this documentary made, and it's on this global platform that when we put it on in 2016 it sounds weird because it's only 4 years ago, was so much smaller than what it is today, but it's blown up a fair bit. And the really cool thing is the amount of people that are watching it now and the amount of people that are getting in touch with me just to say, your film was awesome and inspired me to do X, was for me the reason why I push myself. So I get inspiration from the people who message me and say, you inspired me, you showed me that I can do more in my life. And that is a driving force for me on a daily basis to create content, to do these talks with you guys and other people, to share my story, to share what I've learned, to share my journey, because I know that the fuel I get is that one person who drops me a message who just says, I was really struggling with my marathon training, but I watched your documentary and now I'm excited to train again, or something in everyday life, not just to do with sport. And I know that it was worth the struggle to get to the start line. It was worth the struggle to figure out a way to fund all this stuff, because now I'm in a place where I'm making a difference in people's lives. And that is what I've always wanted to do.
We hope you're enjoying this video. We'd love it if at the end you could head over and check out our crowdfunder.
We're raising money to buy land and buildings to create a unique sanctuary for all, and you can find out more about this over on our crowdfunder page.
You'll find the details in the description below, and please don't forget to check out our social media. You'll find us both on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you. Yeah, I think, you certainly inspired us. I mean, I'm a very, very, very new runner.
You were like running the day after.
I was just like, I can do this. It's just one foot in front of the other, like you said.
You watched me for a couple of years and you're like, and then you
I was always like, I hate running. I don't even run for a bus, I was just like,
because you just saw the end bit. I was like, I've done it.
But it certainly did, and I mean, the furthest I've ever run is 5K. But even for me, that's amazing at the moment, because I can only regularly do 3K. So when I did the 5K, I was like, yeah. But I have what you say in my head. Excuse me. Where's my water? Oh, cat's drinking it. Brilliant. And I just think, I forget about times, and I just think, I've got nothing to prove to anyone other than myself, you know, and I just put one foot in front of the other. And I always think, because I was running at the same time when you were doing your challenge, your 31 days in August, running a mile extra each day. And I was thinking, well, if Luke can run, you know, he's running, I don't know, 26 miles today. If Luke can run 26 miles, I can damn well run 3K, you know, and just do it, you know. And I'd see your videos on Instagram saying, you know, oh, okay, day 26, feeling a bit tired, but, you know, we're going to do this, sun shining, blah, blah, blah. And I just think, yeah, I can do it, you know. And I would have felt the same if you had just been on day one and doing 1 mile. It's just, I think what we found very much so recently is having those positive people. Like, we fill our Instagram and our social media only with these people, you know, so that you're surrounding yourself with a positive vibe all the time.
Yeah, and if you watch TV, we
do try,
especially
don't we?
Well, I was doing a run challenge through the lockdown. Every evening we'd be like, let's just watch, you know, that's where we saw your films
and things like that.
And just watching positive stuff every night. And then it was evening, I was like, I know I'm going to be good to go tomorrow.
Buzzing.
But like, it's another thing we noticed, switching out things like EastEnders and soaps and kind of nothingness to actually watch something that's going to make you feel good. It's going back to what you were talking about with mental health and affirmations and constantly having that positive rhetoric all the time. You end up becoming that voice, rather than, you know, moaning and complaining. Everyone has that choice, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
And don't get me wrong, like, am I positive 100% of the time?
No, me neither.
No. But it's a case of, like, I'm very rarely, and if I ever am negative, I catch myself within seconds. So the way that I view it is, I'm positive most of the time, but occasionally I just try and be less negative. So I'm not negative, just try and be less negative. So if something bad happens, it's not a case of like, well, I need to be positive and I need to always be smiling and bouncing around. It's just a case of, okay, well, that happened. Why did it happen? You know, that's not being extremely positive. That's just like trying to understand, why did it happen? Now, what do I need to do to try and rectify this? And this could be from breaking a plate in the kitchen to, you know, getting an injury during the middle of a race. So very rarely will people, well, never really these days, I never like throw my arms up and get really frustrated. And I don't need to let frustration out, because I don't get frustrated, because I don't waste my time and my energy and my effort and my attention and my focus on being frustrated to let that frustration out, because I don't get it. Because when something negative or less than ideal happens, I look at it and go, okay, so what happened? Why did it happen? What do I need to do to rectify it? And then how can I then move forward? So I've done all of that while someone over here is still throwing their arms up in the air and being frustrated and letting their frustration out. And I've already moved on. So it's not the fact that 100% of the time I'm positive and I'm always looking at the brighter side of life. It's just the fact that I'm very rarely purely negative. It's always less negative. And how could I move past this less than ideal situation, scenario, outcome?
Yeah, absolutely, because the negativity only spirals into more negativity, and ultimately the only person you're hurting is yourself. No one else is necessarily, you know, especially when you're on your own, no one else is interested in your frustration. You're just driving yourself crazy. So it's
And I had a friend a while back who he said to me, I really struggle. You want to do mantra meditation? He said, I really struggle to do it because my mind just wanders and I can't do it. And I said to him, but you're doing it. And you're just nudging your mind back all the time when you're doing a mantra. And it's the same kind of philosophy with life. Is like, you see, if you feel frustrated and you're in a bad place, but you look at other people who are always being positive, it's not because they're constantly snappy and wake up and go, yeah, today's a great day. Although I could try to, but it's that you just keep nudging yourself back going, oh, okay, I've gone down a rabbit hole here or the wrong tunnel, and you just push yourself back to that positive line all the time. That's what we found.
Yeah, there's a guy in America called Trevor Mulweb. He's got a book out, It Takes What It Takes, I think it's called, and he's a performance mindset coach, and his big thing is, you know, thinking neutral. You know, so you can be positive or you can be neutral. Now, neutral is not negative, neutral is not positive. So you see people who are positive all the time and you think they're always positive. Well, it's not the case, because life happens. But when life happens, they're just neutral. They're like what I just explained. That's my version of his concept of neutral thinking. It's just a case of, I'm not going to waste my limited energy and my limited time on thinking these negative things that aren't going to help me move forward. And I don't have to let frustration out because I don't have it, because I view things in a neutral way. And that helps me move forward. So that's another way of looking at it as well, is can you look at a situation, scenario, outcome as positive or neutral?
Yeah. And talking about, obviously, everyone has limited time on the planet, but with regards to recovery, I mean, Johnny's had a bit of an injury, haven't you, from doing your challenge?
Damn tight Achilles.
Yeah. Do you, with regards to frustration, do you take that on when you have an injury or you have something that just sets you back a little bit from doing the next challenge? Do you just take that on as like, okay,
part of the process? Yeah,
part of the process, trusting in it and just having to work through each little difficulty.
See the joy in that.
Yeah.
These days, yes. But yeah, I've learned from experience. You know, like I'm sitting here, I'm not the complete package. I'm always learning every single day. But you know, if we had this conversation 10 years ago, the answers would be very different. And I've done a lot of work in a lot of different ways, and I battled with injuries a lot at the end of my 20s, at the end of my football career. At its worst, I had 3 surgeries in 11 months. The amount of injections, the amount of MRIs, the amount of scans, all these types of things, the amount of tears I had. You know, people ask me, what's your injury history? And I just lie and say I've had 3 surgeries and, you know, injections in my back. That's it. That's all I tell them, because everything else would take a massive book to fill up. So I've been through this so many times, and I used to be extremely negative and get frustrated and all the rest of it. But over time, and as I've got older, I've realized, well, how is that going to help me? So now if I get niggles or I get injuries, I look at it as, okay, what I do today will dictate how I get to what I want to achieve in the future. So if I want to get back to running and I'm injured now, if I want to get back to running in the future, then I have to do everything I possibly can do today to give me a chance to get back running in the future. So I was like, okay, I want that gratification in the future. So in order to do that, which is running, in order to do that, I need to do everything I possibly can do right now. Okay, I'm not a professional athlete, so my entire life can't be a recovery. So it has to evolve around my work, my family life, and just life in general. So I might have a few pockets here. Right. If I want to run in the future, and if I want to be strong and fit and not have injuries again, then I need to do what I need to do right now. So I look at it as training. I put it in my diary as training. I write notes about it. And, you know, I will put on training kit. You know, like some days if I'm just doing some rehab when I've been injured, I will literally put on running kit if I've got a running injury, and I will do my recovery. I'll do my stretching. I'll do my exercises in my running kit to say, this is it. It might be 15 minutes twice a day, 3 times a day, but I'll put my running kit on for those 15 minutes, maybe take it off, put on normal clothes if I'm doing whatever. Okay, lunchtime, do my exercises again, put my running kit on, because it's my training kit. I'm working out, you know, and that way you're getting into the mindset of I'm training, I'm becoming stronger, I'm actually doing something. So you sit back at the end of the day, at the end of the week, and you go, I feel better. Why? Because I put the work in. I haven't sat on the couch and frustrated that I can't run, you know. And the biggest thing for me is, it's always been when you get an injury, is so many people, and I appreciate there's a cost element to this, but so many people wait a couple of weeks. Oh, it'll be fine if I just rest. Whereas I would say invest in your health, invest in yourself, and go and try and figure out what is wrong. Even if you see an osteopath, a physio, or whoever, and they say, just have a couple of weeks rest, do these little bits and pieces, and then if it doesn't get any better in 2 or 3 weeks, come back and see me. Well, the peace of mind that you know that you've seen a professional and they have given you direction, then you're not going to be as frustrated or as negative because you know you're doing the right thing. So, I tell people for a couple of weeks, don't buy a coffee, don't eat out 1 or 2 nights a week to save up that X amount of pounds or dollars to go and invest in yourself, in your health, to go and see an osteopath or a physio or someone like that. So I always, I like to think I'm very smart that I married an osteopath. So if I have some sort of injury, she's my first port of call. But if she doesn't really know what's going on, then it will be a case of, right, I need to go and see a specialist or my sports physician or someone like that and I'll invest in myself. And then it's a case of whatever exercises I have to do, then I look at it as training. And the other side of it is if I don't have to do any exercises, and let's just say you're being told all you have to do is rest, which is really hard to when you tell an athlete or someone who is athletic to rest, then I still look at that as training. So I will block in times. If I've got to work here, there, and everywhere, I'll try and rest as much as I can. But then it's a case of, okay, I've got 2 hours this afternoon. I'm going to sit on the couch and read a book. And I won't judge myself. I won't feel guilty because I will tell myself, this is me resting. This is me training in quotations because I've been told I need to rest. So I still do something while I'm resting that makes me feel good about myself, reading, listening to a podcast, having a conversation. And that helps me stay sane when I'm battling with an injury.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the other thing we wanted to discuss, and I saw you made a comment on Instagram the other day about chocolate, and about not depriving yourself because you never feel deprived because you have the things you want to have, and we kind of similar with that. I mean, we're very, very focused on whole foods and natural foods, and like you were saying about the ingredients in foods on your post about, if you can't pronounce it or know what it is, you shouldn't really be eating it, and we're the same, and we've done that for years, and we often would get sort of funny comments about it, well, you don't eat that, or oh, you don't eat that, and we're also vegan, so it was like a double whammy. But it's not, I've forgotten kind of what I'm trying to say here. It's not about depriving yourself, so you wouldn't go out and have cake every day, but you try and keep an even keel of things. So whatever nutrition you're putting in your body, whether it be, I suppose, while you're doing challenges or whether you're not, is always a sort of even keel. There's not these massive spikes of sugar, for example, and am I making sense?
Yeah. It's a lot of people talk about 80-20. Like if you can eat really well, healthy, nutritious food 80% of the time and 20%, 15% of the time, you're living wild and having whatever snacks or food that you enjoy, that you limit, then you're going to be relatively healthy. It's a case by case thing for individuals, but a lot of people live by that, and I don't disagree about that. And like as I said in the video I did, we mentioned about chocolate. A friend asked me after I did my 31 in 31 challenge where I ran 500 miles in August. He's like, oh, what were there any vices? What were the things that you look forward to after a long run? And I was just like, I don't look forward to anything because I enjoy all the food I eat. So I wouldn't say I eat 80-20 because 20% of what I eat that's maybe not extremely healthy or really, really healthy, like it is. Like, as I said, my chocolate that I eat, it's 90% to 100% chocolate, extremely bitter. Like I love a good South American 100% chocolate. And it's really bitter, and I like that. If chocolate's sweet, I don't like it. So even that is, there are a lot of health properties from I eat a lot of raw cacao, which is basically where they get 100% chocolate from, and it's quite high in fat. I eat a high fat diet, higher than the average person's fat diet, but I don't eat really processed foods. And the one thing that I will say is, if you are athletic and you do some sort of form of training and exercise, don't look at that as an opportunity to then, oh, well, I'm doing this exercise, I can eat this processed crap, or I can eat this bar that's full of ingredients. Like, you should be putting in the best, healthiest, most nutrient dense, real food into your body when you're exerting yourself, because that's when you're asking your body to perform at its highest level. So a lot of people, and professional athletes are included, across all sports, they will get fooled by the marketing that this is sports nutrition. But in reality, a lot of traditional sports nutrition is very cheap ingredients, highly processed, and then you're putting that into your body when you're asking it to perform at the highest level possible. It doesn't make any sense. You should be eating that on days when you're not training, when you're not asking your body to exert itself and to perform at a high level. And then the days you are, you should be eating the best food possible, where a lot of people get it back the front. So it's one thing to live by an 80-20 sort of rule as a loose thing, that I eat really well for 80% of the time, and then maybe 20%, you have a few indulgences if that's what you have, and that's cool. But make sure that those 20% is not immediately before, during, or after any form of exercise, because that's when your body needs the highest quality food that you can give it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
It's something we found, like with the big vegan explosion. We found that but in terms of diet, and there's a lot of, now there's like a new window to be marketed of processed junk, which a lot of younger people are just going to,
it's still junk,
with good intentions.
Yeah.
But for them personally, for the people consuming it, a lot of it's like just the same thing with an ingredients list like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like this has really boomed out now, and that's got confused with sort of a whole foods message.
Yeah.
But they're two very different things.
Yeah, definitely. They're very different. But I haven't written this question down, but I just wanted to ask about your book, because we've seen the film, and we didn't know about your book till afterwards.
Seen the film, now buy the book.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at it. So in relation to the film and the planning for that, and when did you come about writing the book?
Yeah, so it's as with everything with me, there's a story behind it, and it wasn't very linear, I guess. So my book's out on Amazon, Chasing Extreme. It's also on Audible as well. So I read it, and there's actually 3 hours of bonus content in the audio version of me talking about different challenges, different adventures, and also insights into the chapter of the book. So in 2013, I went out to Nepal to spend about 2 months living high up in the rural mountains of Nepal with some elite ultra runners. And then I went to Mount Everest and trekked up to base camp to do the world's highest ultra marathon. Now, I got back from my trip and I had the most amazing experience. I was living high up in these mountains, 3,500 meters above sea level, no electricity, no running water, no toilets, sleeping next to buffaloes and chickens and all these types of things. And it was just mind blowing. These people had nothing. Every day was about survival, but they were the happiest people I've ever met. And I was extremely privileged and lucky to share this experience with them in their homes. So it was just mind blowing. And then I trekked up to Mount Everest, and then ran down in the world's highest ultra marathon. And I got giardia, which is a parasite in your intestines from untreated water. So I basically didn't eat for 3.5, 4 days, and my body was trying to get rid of all liquid. So I was vomiting, I had diarrhea for a couple of days, and then there was nothing left in my body. I was still vomiting and had diarrhea, but it was just clear water because I was now expelling the liquid, the water in my muscles. Because your muscles are full of water, but there's this parasite in my body, and my body's just like, I'm trying to get this out. So it's like you're trying to hose off something, but the water's got to come from somewhere. So my body's grabbing it from anywhere in my body. So I was extremely weak. I was frail, and I didn't have any energy, but I still had to, do the race. So I had this extreme adventure, and I came back and I was like, I need to write a book about this because no one would believe it if I just sort of told them. So I started to write this book, and I thought, well, maybe I need to give people a bit of a backstory about who I am. So I started to write about growing up, and I started to write about my Nepal trip, and that was going to be it. I was basically just going to, have one chapter about who I am, where I've come from, and the rest of it was about Nepal. And then I had my long-term relationship broke down with my long-term girlfriend. I went into a downward spiral with my mental health, and I ran away from the world, from life. Had some pretty dark experiences with depression and suicide and standing on tops of bridges, not wanting to live anymore, binge eating, and all of this stuff that was, obviously extremely detrimental. And I put down the book. I stopped writing for like 2 years. Then the Ultimate Triathlon happened, and a friend of mine who is a writing coach and a writer herself, a published author, she said, you should write a book about the Ultimate Triathlon because it sounded crazy. This is before the documentary came out. And I said to her, well, I've actually written sort of, basically a book already. And I sent it to her, and she just said, this is amazing. You just have to write about the Ultimate Triathlon and then fill in that 2-year gap where I didn't write anything about my life. So then I was like, there's a lot that happened in that 2 years that no one knows about. So I hadn't really opened up about my mental health to most people then. I definitely didn't speak about standing on tops of bridges and wanting to commit suicide. I hadn't spoken to anyone about binge eating, apart from my therapist. So the therapist who I saw for several years was the only one that knew, no one else, not even my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. She knew none of this. So I thought, right, I can either write this lovely little tale of doing these adventures in that 2 years when I stopped writing and my life looks amazing and it's great and I went and did the Ultimate Triathlon. Or I can be extreme and tell the truth 100%. And I decided to do that. So I wrote very open, brutally honest, and just not holding back anything. And I literally, as I tell people, I opened up my mind and my heart for the world to see exactly what it was like. And when I said to my friend who was my writing coach, I said, whatever I send to you goes into the book. So I would even just write and send her an email attachment of like 1 page about one story about, when I felt really bad and I started to binge eat, a whole bag of nuts and a tub of ice cream. And I, was battling with insomnia. I didn't sleep for several nights in a row. Email that to her. And I said, look, if I send it to you, it's in the book. And then I'm trying to figure out how to unsend an email on this because I'm freaking out. Like, no, I don't want people to know about this. But that was it. Like, then we branched that after the Nepal trip, and then I wrote about the Ultimate Triathlon, but I wrote it in a way that if you watch the documentary, you would learn a lot more from the book. So I quite literally was writing each day about the Ultimate Triathlon while I watched the film, and made sure that what I was writing was different to just what the film showed for each day. I made sure there was more stories, there was more insights, there was more action in the book from myself, and I asked the crew to give me some quotes and things like that. So if you've watched the film, you will learn even more about the Ultimate Triathlon from my book, Chasing. And then if you have read the book and haven't watched the film, same thing. You will get more insights from watching the film if you've only read the book. And then after the Ultimate Triathlon, life kept happening. So, I had 2 shoulder surgeries from the swim. I had different physical ailments. My endocrine system started to shut down. I don't want to give too much away, but my riding coach just said, you need to keep riding, because we were just going to finish it at the end of the Ultimate Triathlon, but we realized there's more to it. So I wrote 2 more chapters after the Ultimate Triathlon about what happened in the aftermath, because we wanted to be really open. And a lot of these books, these autobiographies of adventurers and athletes, they finish sort of on a high. We won the championship, or retired on my terms, or we did this adventure and we came home safe. It was awesome. And we could have done that with the Ultimate Triathlon, but what we found out in the 12 months after the Ultimate Triathlon, it was anything but smooth sailing. So 2 more chapters after that to sort of round out what happened and where I was at.
Cool. Well, I'm getting the book.
Yeah, it's nice as well to have a, like you say, it's a refreshing, like it's an honest, it's not
absolutely.
A Hollywood story. So for people reading, it's it's a regular person just doing something extraordinary and being honest.
Yeah, absolutely easy to relate to.
Yeah.
But so I know you can't give things away 100% because you don't have to until you want to. But can you give us an idea of something you might have in the pipeline?
Yeah, so this year, like everyone else, my year got cancelled. I had adventures planned. I had races that I was going to do, but I adapted. I did an Everesting attempt on my bike in my lounge room. So that means I cycled up and down a hill virtually on the Zwift app for all you cyclists out there to the height of Mount Everest, which took me over 12 hours of cycling. That was in my house. 100%. And then I did my August challenge where I ran 500 miles in August, so I ran a mile for the date. So on the first I ran 1 mile, the second I ran 2, the third I ran 3 miles. And I got a bit of a inflamed hamstring tendon, which I'm just dealing with at the moment. It's moving forward. So we're sort of letting that settle before we make any decisions, but I definitely want to do one more thing this year. It's a running challenge, and it involves running uphill a lot. That's all I'll say. So I'll let my body tell me when it's ready, whether it's a couple of weeks or in another month's time. But I've definitely got one more challenge left this year, and then it's a case of I'm just going to bunker down and just have some fun with my training, because I worked quite hard over the last couple of months with some training and with some big adventures. So let my body recover, get into some winter training and just be consistent, low intensity. And next year I'm planning something big in the UK. So watch out for that. Probably reveal that sometime in the start of next year. But I will be starting to prepare specifically for that.
Okay, lovely.
Awesome. And that's all of it. Like, we followed that, just to say to people watching, that's we followed your story on Instagram. Now we followed the whole run, so you're pretty vocal on Instagram, so people can follow along there as well as.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll put all the links to all your social media, your book, your films, everything in there. And the one thing I just sort of wanted to just finish on is. The reason that we're doing these talks with people like yourselves, inspirational people, is because we currently have a crowdfunder going for buying land and buildings. We're trying to raise £100,000. Well, I say we're trying. We will raise £100,000, and we're going to buy land and buildings, which will allow us to rescue more animals, because all our animals are rescue animals, 3-legged ones, blind ones. You name it. The ones that nobody wants, pretty much. And we want to do that, to have the space to do that. But we also want to have a space where people like yourself could come and do talks to people and to help people along the way. We're focusing both on mental and physical health with this. And we're calling it a sanctuary for all. So it would be the Good Life UK, a sanctuary for all. And we wanted to just put it to you that whenever this space is built, we'd love for you to come and do a talk.
I would love to. It sounds like an amazing cause, and if I can help in any way, then I definitely will. And I would love to come and speak in the sanctuary for all.
Yes,
that'll be awesome.
Wonderful.
We're going to be visualising that now.
We are visualising. You can't see it, but we have a vision board up on the wall, which we've had for about a year. So. Slowly moving towards that goal.
We've got a few of those things we can tick off, so it's good. It's working.
Absolutely awesome to talk to you, Luke. It's been really,
thanks so much.
Really fantastic and really interesting as well. And I hope that other people get, inspired. And help with, like I say, with you're so candid and open about talking about mental health, and that needs to happen more, because people are so ashamed. Like you said, you were at one point, you were ashamed, you didn't want to speak about it, and people the stigma needs to go.
Very much like for the guys, and for the guys, especially in sports and athletics. It's important, really important stuff.
Yeah. So thank you for being so honest and open with everything. And I cannot wait to read your book. I'm going to go and order that.
Done.
Ka-ching, one more in the bag.
There we go. Fantastic. I appreciate your kind words, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you both. I've had a lot of fun.
Well, we hope you enjoyed today's video.
Please like, subscribe and share as much as possible.
Thank you.